Welcome back to the island. My name is Donald, aka the Scruffy Looking Gamer, and today we're going to do a deck tech on one of my favorite decks I've been playing. This is Mono Blue Tempo. There's been a few deck techs going around lately. Kitchen Table TCG, Louis posted his blue-white aggro list. Red has also done a deck tech on his blue-white aggro list. And so I'm going to show off my mono blue list. This is, you could say it's a variant of that blue white aggro list, but it's not. It's not really an aggro deck at the heart of it. It's more of a control deck. You can see here I listed it as aggro control. If that's even a thing, there was an option, so I picked it. This deck is more focusing on tempo plays. And what do I mean by tempo plays? Making your opponent have to pay for stuff multiple times, making them really have to use their mana inefficiently. And in that aspect, controlling the board so that you are being efficient with your mana and they're not. Soul energy, not mana. It's such a hard habit to break. Sorry. The point of this deck is to get down an early play, like Cleo, and then you're going to use stuff like arrows to keep your opponent's board clear, so you can just attack in one at a time while controlling what they try to do on their turn. So let's break down how that works. So we have two 1-drops in the deck. We have Cleo and Wyland. So Cleo is 1 blue, 5/3, eager, which means she can attack the turn she comes down, and when she dies, you can probe 1. Cleo is the best turn 1 play we can get. That's what we're looking for. You want to mulligan pretty aggressively for that. Wyland, as the other 1-drop, he's not the best on turn 1. You kind of use him for late game stuff. So Wyland, I'm getting a call from Louis. 1 second. Don't you hate when people call you and beg you to come be their friend and play terrible Magic the Gathering formats like Commander? Anyway, back to what we were saying. I don't remember where I was. I think I was on Wyland. So Wyland, you want to use his ability to sacrifice him. You pay the one white or blue. In this case, the deck's mostly blue, so you probably are paying blue. Return target citizen to its owner's hand. That's really good to bounce, like if they have a Moxie on their field, and you need to be able to attack with your stuff, so Moxie's got to go. It's also good as a combat trick where if they block with one citizen and you can return it to their hand, you can still get that damage through because that's how Kryptik works. So these are our two 1-drops, priority to Cleo. Next, on the 2-drops, we have Einar. Einar is 1 and a blue for a 2/2, and he can't block, and he can't be blocked. Einar is one of the best citizens in this deck because he's going to always get through as long as they don't have a Moxie down, so he can't attack. He's going to always be destroying 11-year cards, and you're wanting to do that to be able to activate Eros. So Eros is 1 in a blue, a 6/6, and she says whenever a citizen you control destroys an 11-year card, you may return Eros to your hand. If you do, return target citizen to its owner's hand. So ideally, on turn 1, you play Cleo. You let's say you're on the play. You play Cleo on 1, and then you can attack. Sure, that's fine. On turn 2, you're going to play Eros. Hopefully you can still attack in with your Cleo. If you do, and you destroy 11-year card, then you're going to bounce Eros to your hand and bounce whatever they had played back to their hand. And then you can just keep their board clear by bouncing stuff like that. Eros, a lot of times, is just use to just drop her down and then destroy it. If you know you're destroying an 11-year card, destroy it and return her back to hand. You're very rarely going to be in a position where you're really attacking with arrows, but it does happen. Speaking of bouncing, we have Davy. Davy is 2 and a blue, a 9/7 citizen. When he enters the island or dies, return target citizen to its with total soul cost 2 or less to its owner's hand. So on turn 3, if they have a Moxie down, you drop Davy, you bounce that Moxie, and you're getting in with whatever stuff you had from turn 1 and 2. Davy is a great tempo play. He can really keep the board clear. Same thing goes for Estrid. Estrid doesn't see a lot of play. One of the reasons is the triple blue and her soul cost. That's kind of rough, but this is a mono blue deck, so we don't really care. When Estrid, she's 3 blue for 8/7. When she enters the island, you may return target citizen to its owner's hand. So it doesn't matter the soul cost. Can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. It's still going back to their hand. So she's also a great tempo play later in the game to bounce bigger stuff back to their hand. So between these cards, you're looking to attack in kind of one at a time, keeping their board clear, and holding up soul mana. We're going to skip these two for a second. Holding up soul so that you can cast spells. This is a pretty heavy spell deck at 19. We're going to talk about Brassman's Will first. You can only run 1 in your deck, but this is a great card. It's basically free 1 mana to cast a spell. And then if they're on short time 3, you're getting 3 of that instead. Fantastic card in this deck. Let's talk about some things you can cast. We want a bunch of low-cost spells. Trivialize. Target citizen becomes a 4/4 with no abilities until end of turn. Great to play on a Moxie to be able to attack through when you can't. It works really well against a Amara trigger if they think they're going to use Amara to get back a spell they want. Then you can trivialize Amara in response and get rid of that trigger so they won't get anything. It's also a good combat trick for blocking on their end. If they block with something, you attack in with something with a 5/5 say, and then they block with something big thinking they're going to kill your citizen, and you trivialize it, turn it to 4/4, and you kill them instead on something like that was a high priority target, like say a Dukraka. It's fantastic. Capital punishment, pretty much a requirement in any deck. Destroy target citizen with total soul cost 2 or less. There's nothing more to say about that. You need to be running capital punishment. Archaism, draw 1, pro 1. This is good late game if you need to kind of refill your hand. This deck doesn't have a ton of ways to draw, to get stuff, to get more cards in hand. It does have a lot of value. We'll talk about that in a second in other ways, but doesn't really have card draw. Impose withdrawal, 1 and a white or blue, return target citizen to its owner's hand. Another good bounce spell to keep those tempo plays going. When they play something and they paid 4 soul costs for it and you pay 2 to return to your hand, then you're up on that. Dead on Arrival and Rash Judgment are 2 counter spells. Once you get past turn 2, it's good if you can hold up 2 soul to always kind of threaten the Dead on Arrival, even if you don't have it. Same with Rash Judgment. If you can hold up that mana, even if you don't have the spell, they're going to have to play around it because they assume that you do have it. Another good tempo play, especially later game when they try and play something pretty big and impactful, and you for 2 soul costs can counter it. So the idea of this deck, as far as soul goes, it is quote unquote mono blue. You notice a lot of these produce blue. You're never putting capital punishment in your soul row. Just don't. But these all produce blue, and then can produce some other colors too. And we'll talk about that when it comes to sideboard. But everything in the deck has blue in its soul cost. So as far as soul energy is concerned, you're pretty much good no matter what you drop down. But we want to be putting these spells like Trivialize, Archaism, Impose Withdrawal into our soul row early because of Branwen. So Branwen is 3 blue for a 6/8. Spell cards you cast from your hand cost 1 colorless less. So your Impose Withdrawal would only cost 1. It's the only one that really affects in the main board, but that's not the reason we're playing Branwen. You may cast Disengage spells from your soul row, abolish spells that are after they resolve this way. So if you drop Trivialize and Archaism and Impose Withdrawal into your soul row early in the game because you needed to be able to cast stuff, then later in the game when Branwen's on the field, you can use those spells, casting them out of your soul row to get the value from them. So when I talked about you don't really have the card draw in this deck, but you have value in other ways, and that's one of the ways to do it. I found that 3 copies of Branwen was just too much, so I've cut it at 2, and it seems to be going well at 2. Speaking of, we're at 40 total cards in this deck. Red mentioned in his video about how you wanted to be as low to the minimum as possible for more consistency. That is true in this deck as well. You have a certain game plan and you want to be consistent with that game plan. So the best way to do that is to stay at the minimum deck size of 40. Kushiel is just a fantastic card. I think you should be playing this, and anything that you can handle the triple blue in this deck, you can easily handle that. She is 2 and 3 blue for 5 total, a 7, 13. And when your opponent's on short time 3, you can abolish her at any time you can play a spell to destroy all citizens. That's pretty relevant in a lot of games, especially games that end up going long that you didn't want to go long, like a control deck will happen a lot of times. Kushiel is a great play. Only room for 2 of her in the main deck, but we do have an additional copy in the side. I think that's everything in the main board I want to talk about. So then moving on to the sideboard, we have basically just some answers to some problems. Midnight Meander, yes, I know this is not a blue spell. It is green or black. After sideboarding, we have several ways to get green, so it's not really a problem. And in the main board, you have Dead on Arrival and Rash Judgment, so you can get the green off that as well. If you had to drop a capital punishment for black, I guess that's fine, but remember with Branwen, we can always use those cards back out of our soul row again, so it doesn't really matter. I don't like dropping counter spells in my soul if I don't have to, just because it's never good to let your opponent know you have that. The element of surprise is what is really good there. But Midnight Meander, for right now in Genesis, this is our only answer we really have to Limbo shenanigans. So Midnight Meander is a must against control decks, undead decks. Sky's Favor, some people might make fun of me for this one, but I have found this card is fantastic against the aggro deck. A lot of times the aggro deck will just assume that they'll look at the board state and they'll know that they have exactly enough to kill you. So they will start a big attack and they will swing out one by one, and you wait till that last one. They think that they've won, and you Sky's Favor that citizen, prevent all damage that will be dealt to and dealt by that citizen, and you've just not only negated their attack, but their entire board should probably be engaged at that point, leaving them wide open for you to just swing in and finish the game off when they thought they had it won. This has come in clutch more than once, and I really like this card against aggro. It's also good, I'll mention, against, like, say, a Fiona, when Fiona's biggest upside is when she destroys an 11-year card, she's moving something from your island back to your soul row. So just stopping her from destroying that 11-year card goes a long way. Same thing goes for, like, a Noland. This card is a lot better than what people give it credit for, I think. Clapton Irons, also great against things you don't want attacking, like a Fiona. Once they attack with it, you can Clapton Irons, and then it will not disengage for as long as it remains on the island. that is that's a good way to keep their stuff kind of locked down so that they're not getting the value out of it. Unholy Mess as a one of, just because sometimes you just need an extra board wipe. We have the additional Kushiel in here to get the 3 of, so a total of 4 board wipes, counting the Unholy Mess. 1 copy of Rosa, just because Rosa is like the fan favorite card, and she just sees no play. So I think Rosa has a home in this deck sometimes against, like I'll bring her in against a mid-range deck, just because you're dropping a lot of spells in your Soul Row, so she has some value. She's not great, but sometimes it's fun to just play Rosa because everybody just loves this card. And Pollux is pretty good against the aggro deck as well. It can block a lot of their stuff pretty safely. It's not always killing it, but later in the game when you're able to cast a spell, like say an Archaism to draw a card, and you blocked with Pollux, and then he becomes toxic, and you can kill them, trade, or not trade, but take out their whatever you blocked of theirs. That's pretty good. He's also steadfast, so if you can get through with him, if you can attack with him to destroy a 11 card, and then he'll still be up for blocking, that's pretty relevant sometimes too. So this is my mono blue tempo list. If you like control style decks, but you don't want to play full on control, you want to make your opponent just kind of miserable, I think that's a good evaluation, because they're not going to keep anything on the battlefield or on the island, and that's kind of the idea of this deck. I think it's a lot of fun. It's probably not tier 1 at this point by any means, but I think this deck does get better in Wicked Prophecy with a few cards we've seen. So if you're looking for something new to play, give this deck a shot. Let me know what you think. I'd really like to hear from you what your thoughts of this deck is, what you think you would do differently, or if you've played a similar style deck. If you've played a fairy deck in Magic, then this is right up your alley. You should give this a shot. So that's it. That's the mono blue tempo list. So until next time, we'll see you on the island.